Hi class, my name is Tina Hildebrand and this is my discussion post. In Chapter 3, our book discusses a quote from Martin Trout that says that higher education was treated with unusual deference by their state sponsors, who were often content to leave the money on the table with few questions asked. I thought this quote was a great starting point for the readings throughout this learning module. It sets the precedent that in the 19th century, higher education was truly making headways, and the government, both local, state, and federal, had to figure out how to handle this rapid increase in colleges and universities. The result was that the government agencies first had to decide who was truly in charge of higher education. The first entity that higher education is held accountable to is the federal government. Although the Constitution does not explicitly state the federal government's role in education, the federal government's funding provides for 15% of public institutions' assistance, and they still somehow make up a large portion of that picture. They provide federal aid to needy students by way of grants, provide tax incentives to schools and students, and help institutions engage in scholarly research, especially in the sciences. Their different grant programs have radicalized higher education historically. The Morrill Land Grant Act of 1862 provided encouragement for Western expansion by pushing studies in mechanics, engineering, mining, and agriculture. The Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, also known as the GI Bill as everyone else knows it, brought more than 1 million veterans to school. It had a profound effect on history. It showed that higher education was now an every man and every woman opportunity regardless of gender and race. The Civil Rights era brought us the Great Society program, which paved the way for equal opportunity in higher education. And most recently, President Obama's administration of the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act assisted states by helping them replenish lost state dollars from declining tax revenues. With all these grants, however, comes accountability. The federal government may not have constitutional control over higher education, but as time moves on, more and more accountability is put to higher education in return for these gestures. Since the federal government provides so much federal student aid, they obviously will want to know that the institutions are working to their standard. It is simply put business because they are investing and want to know that they are going to receive a substantial return in their investments. Institutions see compliance regulations, more vigorous reports, legislation, and the cost it places on institutions, however. Another entity that higher education is held accountable to is the state government. However, that is a hot topic in today's higher education realm. Higher education falls to the states via the United States Constitution. However, it is questionable to this day what that exactly means. The states did not play a significant role until the establishment of the Morrill Land Grant Act of 1862, as mentioned earlier, but they have always been in the background since it is obviously hard to ignore another institution popping up in their state. State and local assistance makes up about 35% of the institution's assistance, significantly higher than the federal government's 15%. State governors, mayors, representatives, and senators make up a large portion of those with a say in state agencies. Most states have something very similar to the university system of Georgia that we have, but not all states. Where I came from in Indiana, we did not have something like that. Most of the institutions work separately from each other. Most carry some sort of governing board of trustees or something similar in order to help provide a more individualized support system to the state's institutions. Both areas of government play a significant role in higher education, and by doing so hold the institutions accountable just as professors hold their students accountable, because they are investing their time and money into ensuring that an institution is successful, much like a student. And to the next subject area of the learning module, the two issues and how they differ between faculty or staff and students and the public. One of them is financial aid and the other one is global competitiveness. As for global competitiveness, I believe that faculty and staff are held to certain pressures when it comes to global competitiveness. To see that the United States, once a global leader in higher education, is now ranked 14th hits close to home to those who work in higher education, such as myself. Faculty and staff and administrators see firsthand the type of pressure President Obama is challenging us all to do to get us to where we want to be in 15 years, 10 years. Students and the public may not see it the same way. The public only sees it as a way of rankings and competition, while the faculty and staff will see it as a report card. Having both sides have two opposing views on global competition does not help us get back to number one, however. Both sides have to be on the same page in order to move forward and improve our rankings. Another issue is that of financial aid and its debt. Students in the public view financial aid as a crisis, and it is. Many of us have student debt. However, in today's standards, most faculty and staff well into their careers are already through their education or are offered discounted or free tuition at their institutions or something similar, such as our TAP program. However, for the students and the public, the future is grim for them. 2014 graduated the highest debted students in history. That is not something that they are very proud of. Faculty and staff are not seeing those loan dollars, so we are on a different side of the issue altogether. It makes for everyone to be in a constant battle with each other because we have a variety of generations comparing and contrasting their different financial aid experiences and backgrounds or struggles. It affects both sides of the issue, though, because we will eventually see students and the public recoil from attending college due to the scare of financial aid debt. Overall, I believe that the federal government controls higher education. Even though they only provide 15% of financial assistance to public institutions, their effect on higher education is astounding. The federal government sets the standards globally, nationally, and locally. I believe that they control it because they're the only ones that I have faith can change it. Just as in Mark Udoff's insightful article exploring a new role for federal government in higher education, he pinpoints just exactly what can be done by the federal government to help slow down and possibly stop the snowballing effect happening in our country right now. For too long, one way has been operating, but Udoff suggests a variety of ways to change the direction. He encourages the use of Pell Grants, which are regulated by the federal government, the importance of research in higher education, and how important it is to our future generations and societies to be back on the top rankings of educated citizens. Our institutions may not appreciate compliance and constantly being monitored by the federal government, but it does not look like the state can keep up with the growing needs of institutions. There are simply too many 2-4 and postgraduate schools, which is a good thing, that need much more help. Simply put, the federal government controls higher education because they're the only ones that can truly attempt to change the trend that our country is going towards right now. And that's the end of my learning module.